Lieutenant Colonel Dan Ranson, and we are going to spend about an hour time reviewing the Inspector General presentation for our wing here, originally designed for the 20 March 2021 wing conference. And I'll be going through the screens. I make sure I get this flipped. And so what you see on your screen now is a summary of the topics we're going to be talking about here. Subordinate unit inspection key points, compliance resolution inspections, some SIU reoccurring inspection items, and those are for what's been occurring in the last couple of years, key items that'll help the squadrons and everyone involved in SUI preparation to better handle what is expected from an SUI. Remote SUI activities, duration, squadron staff personnel issues, and new NHQ IG changes for 2021 and 2022. These are significant changes that we'll be reviewing today. So with our first topic, it's Missouri Wing IG SUI repeat items. So these have been repeated over and over, and they seem to be coming less and less observed, and people don't understand what this means. These are all in the information that is sent to you for a squadron at the notification letter 60 days before the SUI. But I want to re-emphasize these points for the sake of making the SUI work better, not only for the squadron, but for the inspection team. First item is SUI begins 10 days before the scheduled SUI, which means all documents should be uploaded by this time. That includes, if we're doing it remote, that would include any pictures, anything to identify on-site items, as well as the evidence documentation. That's 10 days before the scheduled SUI, and that's when the SUI team will start to review the documentation and compare the evidence documents to the questions in the worksheet, all of the various worksheets. So that's when it starts. After that point, it may not be seen. So you could have unless you make a special point of it, SUI team may miss some documentation if you put it in after that 10 days, because they may have already looked at it and it'll have to be brought up during the SUI. And that's happened recently. And when you're looking at the worksheet, please read how to verify. That's the second column on the worksheets that help the person understand what is necessary to help answer the question and to provide evidence document for that and its verification. So, and some items, the next item, third, can be corrected on the same day. The SUI questions, if you have a problem and you can answer the SUI question with documentation available that evening or day of the SUI, then it can be entered into the documents section, and it'll eliminate a discrepancy that could be noted from that information that wasn't previously supported by correct documentation. But only for that day. If you go away and come back 2 days later, too late. It's only on that day. The on-site statement means to be reviewed by the SUI team member during the SUI. Remotely, it means you could upload pictures, and this has been used mostly with vehicles and the pages, for example, of the transportation logbooks and of the assets, both from an S2 or an S8 listing, so we can check and see that the inventory is correct during an SUI. These things are being partially done, but we have to do a full inventory. And this is all inventories are rechecked during the SUI. Even if you did it in October and we have an SUI in January, we're going to review all the inventory assets, both COM and the other equipment that would be purchased for the squadron that would be used. All items are checked, all inventory items with the SUI. The next item, and this is probably the most occurring event now that is being neglected by squadrons. Every open discrepancy status must be updated every 30 days in the IG DTS listing location. For some reason, this seems to be something that the squadron commanders are not doing. I will let you know that if it doesn't get better, more than likely there's going to be some form of added discrepancy coming out of national. But if a squadron does not have a statement in there at the 30-day mark, they're going to have to put in a statement to say what the status is, ongoing status toward the resolution of that discrepancy. Okay, next one is worksheet revision date existing. The correct worksheets to be used for an SUI are the worksheets that are in existence that you should take from the IG website location at the time of the notification letter, not the SUI, not any other time. It's notification letter. When you receive that, a squadron commander should go in and pull the worksheets from the IG website, and that's what the squadron should be used. And that's what a team leader does also. So when we say you're not using the right revision, more than likely you didn't pull it at the time of the notification letter. So the IG team does the same thing as the squadron does. So all members are operating from the very same worksheets. This has been a little bit of a continuing problem, especially when people try and borrow it from the previous SUI. It becomes real obvious. Okay, the next thing is, please read all information pertaining to the SUI, which accompanies the notification letter from the IG team leader. This is 60 days prior to the anticipated SUI date. We have to, as team leaders, provide additional information to every squadron along with the notification letter. That information is going to be that, the previous SUI will be there, or be telling you how to go get it, reminding you of that, reminding you about different things that have happened with the SUIs in the past or recently within the wing. We will be giving you other information. You need to read it and read the letter of notification and what comes along with that. We're finding that it's just being ignored, a lot of the information, because normally it takes anywhere from 4 to 6 attachments to provide the various information that the team leader will give the squadron for an SUI. That's for the squadron and the staff members to utilize. It's not just meant for the squadron commander to review and disregard or forget about. It's showing up as people simply not being prepared when the SUI comes around. Next item, estimate for discrepancy results indicate over 50%, and I'll repeat that, 50% of squadron staff are not trained in their specialty track. And in fact, even if a lot of them are, approximately, we're estimating about 70% of the people are generally not current in their specialty tracks per that particular area in an SUI. And that's an alarming level, but this is supported by quite a bit of information from Wing and from National, that we're seeing some of the repeat discrepancies over and over again. Now, people who've been in the jobs 2 and 3, 5 and 6 years are not staying current with it. It's the responsibility of all people within their particular specialty track to stay current. It's really, especially with the COVID situation, it appears to have become more of a situation that is appearing on SUIs. So if you're in, and the National is considering, if you start a specialty track, that you should finish it within a year. And that could be coming real soon. I've been saying that for a year, but it is on the table and has been there, and they're still strongly wanting to implement that. Recommendations from my standpoint, with what I've seen in the wing after nearly 10 years of doing this job in 3 different periods of time, is that I'm recommending new commanders need a minimum SUI training and or review course. And I'd help develop that if necessary. Squadron personnel must convey previous SUI experiences and information to replacements. For some reason, this seems to be a reoccurring problem, and I'll explain the problem. When squadron commanders who have previously been through an SUI step down, it's not uncommon when I do an SUI to find that that person has said, well, I didn't want to get in the way of the new commander so they could do their own thing as squadron commander. But seriously, what's happening is they are not experienced particularly well in SUIs. And if you have been, there's a serious loss of that experience and information transfer that occurs. And many times every SUI is like a brand new SUI to the commander and key staff people. And if staff people will stop and be willing to help, it'll help. Probably most of the squadrons within the entire wing will benefit from this not occurring, and previous people with experience stepping up to help. I can't speak for every squadron, but this is an obvious problem between personnel, older personnel and new personnel occupying positions in almost every squadron that I conduct SUIs in the wing. Next item, squadron personnel should utilize SUI knowledge base. This is almost not being used at all when I question people. It is designed now, if you have questions about SUI, use the knowledge base. It's there for you. They'll put it in that way. It'll help you find information or reports or things that can be used as evidence documentation. I would say that this is not being used even 5% of the time by squadrons, and it's a shame because this could really help your job and make it easier to find information about particular topics that you may not be well versed in. And just over and over, this is the case. Next item, review previous SUI when beginning a new SUI preparation. Surprisingly, we have been asked as team leaders and wing IGs to include that now with the information, because squadron commanders are not going in and looking at the previous SUI. The key point here is to understand what has happened in the past from the previous SUI. And number 2, we utilize a grading system. If you have a repeat discrepancy from the previous SUI, it counts at a higher level, and therefore the chance of failing a particular specialty track is much easier to occur if you have repeated discrepancies on the very same item. This is not being done, so we as team leaders are now providing the previous SUI report so that it can help you prevent this from occurring. It's working in some cases, other cases it's not yet, but it's going to be a regular event that the SUIs would be part of the information. So then the next thing, and that's all I had, is general review items for you. But the next few items here would be, this is National Headquarters remote inspection status. uh, some of their comments from Colonel Burns, and he's on the IG staff at NHQ. Uh, in general, they consider that the remote are less effective method of determining compliance and identifying issues is the remote over the visits. And the reason is obviously being remote, you can't quite get the same level of existing culture within the squadron and review of the facilities as if you were there in person. So, whenever possible, we still want to start going back to squadrons and inspecting the facilities where they meet the same as we used to, and meeting with people where you can see them face to face. So I could see this situation and why this would be the case. But remote are going to continue to be options during this COVID outbreak. And until we get further down the road, we're going to be able to continue utilizing the remote inspections until we feel more comfortable with the COVID situation. Next item, National said there's currently no mandate to restrict inspections to remote status. So each state or wing, in this case, each wing will be able to, have some say about when we can and could start using non-remote and go back to visiting squadrons. So it's a combination of IG personnel and the wing staff, wing commander getting together with the IG people and deciding this. The wing decision to utilize remote inspections is a risk management procedure, and I want everyone to understand it has everything to do with the current status of what our vaccination level is and exposure to other people who may not be vaccinated. So this is going to be more of a state situation. That's where we'll be trying to decide based on what the state tells us is the immunization levels that then will help feed the wing commander and the IG people to when we feel that this is a very low risk management procedure to visit squadrons versus as it still is right now to a certain degree. And this was from Colonel Burns. Okay, the recommendations, some recommendations from NHQ is that the IG team leaders and IG personnel will utilize the SUI quality assurance checklist. We have one of those and we're sending those out. So we use those to in fact check off to be sure that we are covering all the items during an SUI. That is a procedural mandate now that all of us are doing. I do it on mine, and I also utilize the grade calculator so that every grade is put through the system, and it gives us the ultimate results that you see when you receive your report. Utilizing a grade calculator with the assurance checklist that we did touch on all the right items during the SUI. Squadron commanders use the inspection knowledge base. That's something that's highly recommended even from NHQ. They notice as well, like I have, and I didn't realize that, but when I saw this and Burns mentioned, I said, well, I have the same problem, and so squadron commanders need to utilize this. It's a tool that's remaining in the holster. It's not being used. And NHQ is also recommending that SUI training for squadron commanders is a high priority going forward in all wings. And so obviously in NHQ, and I agree 100% that these are critical items for squadrons to be sure to handle the SUIs in a much better fashion going forward. Some regulatory changes. This is kind of important, but I want you to be aware of what's happening. We have changes both on the inspection side of the IG work and on the compliant resolution side. And I'm going to cover those in just a minute. The bottom part here, we have had up until this time CDIs, that's Commander Directed Investigations. And that was an investigation that an SUI team would be assembled at the request of the wing commander to investigate a situation, make recommendations, and he would simply decide if he was going to do it, do something else, or whatever. But it was information for him to help manage situations that have occurred or are occurring in squadron operations normally. Effective with this presentation now, there are no more commander-directed investigations, but there are inquiry investigations that can be done. They don't carry the same weight, and they're at a lower priority level than what the commander-directed investigations are about. And this is simply, as it says, it's an initial inquiry that there may be something going on. So it's still a way to validate, is there a situation that it's existing or is it not existing that needs to be addressed? It's pretty significant. Okay, next thing. Okay, National Headquarters in 2021 program is really going to make some changes here. They have additional training and specialty track concentrations. And in the IG senior course is being replaced. And it's being divided into two aspects. One is advanced inspections for those following an inspection specialty track, and an advanced program for the CR course for those following compliant resolution specialty track. So now it's being divided up. You can specialize in just doing SUI work, or you can be a part of the IG team of a wing and just focus on compliant resolution. You don't have to do both. If you have a master's level in one, you can then be trained in the other. And both will be offered online, and work products will be developed by students and submitted to an evaluator for grading. So it'll be an online course that you'll be going through, much like the learning courses that we already do at home. And you'll have work assignments to complete, and they'll be graded by an evaluator on the national staff. So that's what's coming in 2021 here that's already being developed as I talk. So we have now 2 IG specialty tracks. So let's talk about the compliance resolution first. Even the national commander has requested that the compliant resolution standardized process be better developed and installed. He wants the investigations to be conducted by well-trained individuals, and generally that means it'll be individuals that have some background and some minimal higher level of training than what we're seeing in most wings. So and most investigations will probably be handled to an assigned investigator at the region or national level. And then files, the ECIM system is going to be replaced and going to have a better file storage system, still with limited access to obviously the people that are conducting the compliant resolution case investigation. But certainly we hope that this will be a better method of compiling information and gathering and storing and utilizing information to the resolution of a non-compliant situation. Okay, here's some timetable for everyone. And this is what National is working on. By 10 September, we expect an updated 20-2 regulation that begins the approval process. Okay, so that's going to be the 20-2 will be updated by September. Also in September on the 18th, they're trying to work toward a new CR, that's compliant resolution orientation training. So that'd be for people that are interested in following that particular dedicated specialty track within a wing. So that's going to be the first level training. And these are all home. This would be a home course that you'll be able to take. You don't have to go anywhere to take it. 17 October, CAP IG and IGQ work with region IGs to get current cases in ECIM moving toward closure and ready for the changeover. Remember the SOR on the previous sheet? We'll be start moving. If you have an open ECIM case going on, that's what will be happening here after 17 October. We'll be moving that over. For the other things, the ECIM cases that are in there that are closed, that'll be moved over automatically before that time period. But if they're in open ECIM cases, that's when they'll have to work with wing people and the region to start moving active cases from the ECIM into the new resource storage center in SOR. October 30th is a goal to update 20-1. That'll be ready to begin the approval process. This approval process doesn't mean publishing. It means the approval process of going through other IG people and any other committees or personnel at the wing level, maybe at the wing level, but certainly will be at the NHQ level. And that includes Air Force review as well. So sometimes these approval processes, I've seen them take a year, but generally they're much quicker than that. But sometimes they could go on for quite a while. But these are still key dates that mean that they should be original, at least first or second level documentation should be prepared in a form that can go forward. So process showing new. So this October 30th is going to be the new 2-track options for the IG program. So you can specialize in one area or the other. December 1 begins a changeover to the CR process. So they're expecting this one to be quicker than the SUI, and they're keying on that one first. It might just because it's a priority with situations that are evolving or existing at the national level. So those are key dates, and you can see there's a lot going on here in the last part of the year. Compliance resolution benefits. This also came from the commander, the national commander. They're hoping that members are better served by a clear process. Wing and region commander burdens is reduced. So very few people would be doing investigations at the wing level. Added consistency, confidentiality, and impartiality for all the process complaints. That's what they're trying to get to. Apparently this has been real issues. We haven't seen it in Missouri so much, but apparently it is nationally. We want the CR investigations to be conducted by more professional level training. And that's why, obviously police officers have a key advantage here with their background. Wing IGs such as myself will be able to focus on subunit activities, all the squadrons and groups and the things going on with that. So it's a little lighter load for wing IGs because most of their attention is going to be focused away from compliant resolutions unless you've already been trained in it. So that's going to be could be a workload reduction. In Missouri, we don't have that many, but still it could serve to be that way. Hopefully with more professionals professional level training, it'll be much quicker process and resolution of CR items. And hopefully the quality oversight by the CRPs, that's the professionals doing the investigation, compliant resolution professionals, it'll be done better. And it'll be more consistent. So that's a pretty big task to revise from now to the end of the year, the entire compliant resolution program. Some other things coming out of national on the inspection side. So The IG college curriculum, it used to be given every 2 years. The name is being changed to IG Master Class. It's going to be offered annually, and the format will be a hybrid or self-directed through live presentations. And again, you'll have assignments and you'll be learning. Well, each year you can be learning and advancing up through the IG track with presentations common. So we're going to have, there'll be some presentations that'll have a dual curriculum with presentations common to both inspections and CR. There is some overlap. This is not going to be prevalent at first, according to Colonel Burns, but they are going to work on this curriculum here as well as the individual curriculums also above. It's a little confusing, but there's some people that want to have some training in both, and that's why this one will come later on, but this could be the case. This one, I'm not so sure has actually even been started yet. I didn't get that feeling with coming from Colonel Burns. Okay, some other specialty track, something to know that if you're an IG with a master's rating in IG specialty tracks, you're considered, already will be considered qualified in both specialties. That's for SUI and for CR. So there's a couple of us that could fall into that category, but there's very few nationally that fall into that, could do both ways. But if you do get a master's in each one, masters now, you could then you'll be could be considered qualified. You'll have to do this year, because otherwise you'll have to fall into the other two tracks, one or the other, get all the way up to a master's before you'll be allowed, once you start a specialty track, to be able to go into the other specialty track. You have to finish one before you'll be allowed to go into the other. Following approval of regulations, IGs holding a rating in either specialty, inspection, or compliance are authorized to continue professional development to acquire the additional specialty track. That's what I was saying up here. This just is the exact wording that they're putting out. So you can't start one, jump to the other one, and go back and forth. You start the IG for inspections, you got to go all the way up to masters, or you're not going to be allowed to go into the compliant. You can't just change like it. They're not going to allow that. Too many people have started the coursework and then just never finish. They're not going to allow. They want to stop that, and they are. If you want to know the people in these particular areas, if you, or I'll always keep these because I've talked to all three of these people I've worked with. So you look at the regulations, and these are the gentlemen, they are on the national roster. You can just go to the national IG listing and they will be right there. Greg Gallagher, Preston Paranot. He was a detective for about 25 years on the police force, so that's where his background comes from. And he's the key CR, compliant resolution investigator. And Colonel Burns is the key IG guy. So really good staff. They really know what they're doing. So with that, I know I've just kept going and didn't stop to ask questions, but here would be a time where we'd have questions to be asked and review regulations or any other part of the presentation. So that gives you a little overview of what's going on in this coming year, and these items will be going on into 2022 because the approval process does take time. So official approval process starts in the last quarter, and then we'll go, and I mean the last quarter of the calendar year, then it'll go into 2022 for final approval and implementation. So with that, thank you. I appreciate your time. Good evening, everyone.